Welcome to another edition of Mark's Inspiration. Got the D-Man here, and today I'm glad you could join me. Today's topic is going to be the word trauma and many other words we use today in society to magnify things that don't need to be magnified. The reason, excuse me, I've been kind of sneezing, so I'll try to get through this. My voice is getting a little raspy too, so let's see what we can do. All right, these words like terrorism, trauma, the words that the media uses to magnify situations. Now, the reason they do that is they want to sell newspapers, so they try to get an emotional response from people. So they put a headline on there that, for example, the latest health crisis. What was the word I seen the other day? Numbers or cases are plummeting. Okay, that was when the cases of this current situation were dropping. Now, before it was words like cases are skyrocketing, hospitals are overwhelmed. I mean, they use these words to get an emotional response from you because they realize that people act on emotion. Although they may think they use logic. All right, they see the headlines, the emotion, I better see what's going on. Okay. In their mind, they think, yeah, I need to be informed. That's their logical justification for the emotional response, which is, I got to buy that paper because something might happen to me. So these words we use are very important when we say them about ourselves. The reason I decided to speak on this topic because a word that I've seen a lot lately used by people is the word trauma. Okay? Now, the reason I'm talking to you about this is because the importance of these words is in how you use them about yourself. It doesn't matter what other people say about themselves, but how you speak about yourself, how you think about yourself. I see this word trauma being used. Yeah, I had trauma in my past. I have to heal my trauma. I'm upset with women because of my traumatic past. When you start using a word like that, you need to look up the definition first to see what that means. But it seems to include anything now from my dad whipping my butt with a belt to I broke my toy after I got it for my birthday and I was upset when I was 5. It was a traumatic experience for me. The word trauma is really supposed to be related to things like war, death on a mass scale, or I'll give you a good example. There was a man around here, it's happened several times, farm accidents. He was riding the tractor with his son. He got off, and somehow the tractor got in gear, and the big tractor wheel run over his boy, and his boy died before he could get him to the hospital. That's a pretty traumatic experience. Now, that's something you would use the word trauma for. Now, in opposition to that, or in contrast of that, you're driving the tractor and it breaks down and a thunderstorm comes and you get wet and you have to walk 2 miles to get to your house, and maybe you had to wade through a creek that was kind of scary because it was up high and the water was going fast. Okay, that is not a traumatic experience. But the way they're using the word nowadays, they would call that a traumatic experience. Very upsetting. I didn't know how I was going to get home. I was afraid somebody was going to steal my tractor. The creek was high and I didn't know if I was going to get through it. I mean, these are just things that happen in people's lives. Sometimes several times in a year. I mean, I don't consider myself being raised by an alcoholic father a traumatic experience. Yeah, he was pretty rough. I didn't see any emotion but anger from him. I got my butt whipped a lot. Okay, now I'm not saying that it didn't form some things in me that I've had to work on later on in life, but if I view that in a perspective of trauma, then I look at it as some traumatic or momental event in my life. I mean, if you choose to look at it that way, that's fine. But more than likely, it's going to affect you for the rest of your life and all the decisions you make. Sure, if you've had some emotional responses and baggage from these things, you need to take a look back at it and just feel those emotions if you didn't do it at the time and deal with it. But referring to things in your past as traumatic experiences, or I've had trauma in my past and I have to work through it, it's like you're a victim. Okay, I say you created that trauma, even as a child, or at least you came into this world, you picked your parents. Well, let's say you don't believe that. Okay, you came into this world, and what happened happened. Well, I get interrupted. I try to tell the kids that I'm videoing, but some of them are way downstairs, which is 2 floors down, or 3, something like that. I live in a big house, and they wake up. And anyway, back to the word trauma. If you use that word, that indicates that something in your past was just traumatic, terrible. Like I said, war or death or an airplane crash or something like that. That is the problem with words that we use now. We use words like this: terrorism. Okay, let's say 911, the towers. That was a terrible act of terrorism. People died. It was a terrible thing, surely, for the people's families and the people who died, the people who jumped out of the buildings. That was definitely a traumatic experience, okay? But now we use the word terrorism. That was only an act of war. If you want to look at history, we used terrorism back during the Revolutionary War, when we were fighting the English for freedom for our country. The rules of war at that time were to meet on the field of honor, okay, face to face, and then just walk toward each other and shoot and kill each other, okay? But we could not defeat the greater foe, which was the English army, by fighting in that way. So we decided to start hiding and using snipers and surprise attacks, little groups of guerrillas, militia. That was considered terrorism back at that time, as far as the word goes today. So when they attacked the towers, that was just an act of war against us from a smaller foe who could not face us on the field of honor, so to speak. If there is such a thing as a field of honor in war, that's the way it's considered. But we use the word terrorism like they're terrorists, like they're monsters. Well, that's from perspective too. If you are the family of some of these people that flew the planes into the Twin Towers, those men were heroes, okay? To us, they're terrorists. To me, they're just people that were fighting us. They're warriors. You think they're crazy? How many men in our country, the U.S., have given their lives, are willingly committed suicide, more or less, by facing the enemy or charging the enemy when they knew they were going to get killed? But they did it as an act of what we call valor. The same thing with the men that flew those planes, or the people that tied bombs to themselves. We look at them as they're crazy. Those people believe in what they're doing so much they're willing to give their lives for their country. What is the difference between our soldiers here that go fight wars? They're willing to give their lives for their country. And if need be, they will face an enemy that they cannot defeat, that they know they're going to die. Same difference. There is no difference. It's all from perspective, how you look at it. Sure, if I were one of the people that died in the towers, of course, it wouldn't matter to me now, but let's say my family died there, I would probably have some anger and resentment towards the terrorists or the opposing force, which would be normal, okay? But that would be something I would need to deal with, because the resentment I have toward them is going to eat me up. It's not going to hurt them. But on the other end, their families think that the people who died flying the planes into the towers are heroes. From their perspective, they are. So how can we judge? Judgment only hurts us. Don't get me wrong, I wish we didn't have wars, but we do. We're a warring society. We have been since the beginning of time. It's unfortunate but true, but on the other hand, we need these things, apparently, or we would not be doing them for us to grow spiritually or metaphysically or whatever. This is resistance. If we had no resistance, we would not grow nearly as well. I don't know about you, but when I'm in terrible pain, or when I'm going through trauma, as they call it now, I mean, I've had some pretty bad stuff happen to me. You can read my book, Coming Back Home, The True Adventure of Mark Daniels, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, if I viewed all that as bad traumatic experiences, which it was pretty rough, then I would still be a victim and I would still be suffering or hurting or stuck in the past. But I've tried to look at that, or I haven't, not tried, I've looked at that as what has formed me into the person I am today. I would not be here with you sharing what I'm sharing with you today had that not happened to me. Through those traumatic life experiences, I looked within myself because I had so much emotional pain. And I knew I couldn't stop that emotional pain by looking out there or blaming the people who caused these so-called traumatic experiences. But by looking within myself, I was able to find in me what brought these things into my life, why I manifested or why I became involved in these experiences. Okay, there was a lesson there for me. And these people that did these terrible things to me were my greatest teachers. Did I enjoy it at the time? Hell no, I didn't. I wanted to, well, I won't say what I wanted to do to them, but you could take a guess. Okay, but I had to look within myself because that's where the answers lie. I was responsible for all that happened to me. I put myself in that position. Okay? What was the common denominator in all these traumatic experiences that happened to me? I was. I can only change me, and you can only change you. But the first thing we need to change is our vocabulary. I'm not talking about denying what happened. I'm not talking about denying the pain of what happened. What I am talking about is not looking at it as some devastating, you're still here, right? You're still alive. Okay, you can still eat, drink. I mean, and even if you can't, even if you're crippled or paralyzed or whatever happened to you, you're still alive, and blaming people or thinking that defines your life is only going to let it define your life. If you want to be defined by a traumatic experience in your past, then of course that's your choice. But if you want to allow that to make you into something more and become the man you desire to be, then you can choose to do that too by looking at it at a different perspective, from a different perspective. The choice is always yours. So you choose today. All right? Thanks for joining me. I hope this has been of help to you. Like I said, I'm not denying that terrible things happen to people. And if something terrible has happened to you, I just want you to try to look at it from a different perspective so you can grow from it and put it behind you and learn what the lesson was there for you, where the silver lining is. And I know that's hard to see sometimes because I know there are some terrible things that happen to people. I'm not belittling that, but you can only do what you can do now. The only time we have is now. We must get past these things and learn from them. Okay, smash the like button. Have a great day. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you, my subscribers. Share this with a friend. See ya.